This is Real Estate This Week with Stephen Gasque, continuing 16 years on air and online, helping you succeed in buying, selling, and investing in property. The best real estate strategies out there just for you.
Welcome to Real Estate This Week. Hi again, I'm Stephen Gasque, and I'm so glad you're here as we look at how the pros buy and sell their own properties when it's their house they're selling, or that new house they want to buy. How do they do it, and what can we learn from it? Let's find out. Joining us now is Lorraine Aurora, Associate Broker with Berkshire Hathaway PenFed Realty in Tysons Corner, Virginia, and the President of the Virginia Realtors. Lorraine is also the past president of the Northern Virginia Association of Realtors. Lorraine, welcome to Real Estate This Week.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you so much for having me.
I am so glad you are here. And so, Lorraine, here we are in the fall market of 2025. So tell me, what's happening in your market, Northern Virginia?
Northern Virginia is still hot. However, when homes sit on the market a little longer, sometimes sellers get a little nervous, but buyers are out there ready to pounce on homes. And if your home is priced correctly, shows well, the house will sell. And sometimes, even in this market, there will be multiple offers.
Oh, that's good to know. Good to know, because a lot of sellers are wondering what the market changes mean to them. And so, Lorraine, on today's show, I'd like to ask you what you would do if you were selling your own home. And I know you. I know the first answer is going to be hire a realtor. Tell me, why is that so important?
You are absolutely right, Stephen. There is nothing like having a realtor represent you. A realtor is held to the code of ethics. A good realtor has a lot of experience. They guide you because you don't buy and sell a home every day. And you need someone who's going to hold your hand and take the emotion out of it, be your front when it comes to dealing with buyers and guiding you through the entire process.
I see. But Lorraine, a big question. Here you are with decades in the real estate business. I mean, couldn't you just do it yourself?
I could, Stephen. I could sell my home myself. However, there is a risk factor because there's a lot of emotion attached to your home. I tell my sellers it's now a business transaction. It's no longer a home. It's a house. And so a realtor will buffer the negotiating when it comes to inspections, price, and making sure that the home goes to settlement and it's a win-win for everyone.
I see. And so, Lorraine, when you list a home for sale and you walk through the door for the first time, what do you typically see? Is the home really cluttered? Does it have a lot of family photos? Is it sort of not ready for the marketplace? Or in Northern Virginia, where many of the houses are beautiful, are they just show places?
It depends, Stephen. Sometimes the home is perfect and there is very little that needs to be done. And on other occasions, it's so personalized that you walk into a family museum. So it is imperative to get someone, and when I go on a listing appointment, I usually take a stager with me. And what I mean by that is I have a third party, take the professional with me, who will tell a seller that, oh, you've got too many pictures of grandma up there, and take this out and move things around and your home is too cluttered. People cannot envision their quote-unquote stuff in this home. And to neutralize it, it is important to have a stager who will, quote, declutter the home.
Oh, that's interesting. And what does the stager tell them? Room by room, how does a stager help?
So a stager will tell them what it means to declutter a home, A stager will tell them whether the drapes help or don't. Sometimes they have these gorgeous drapes, but they date a home. And you want to make a home as desirable and neutral for any buyer coming through. The stager will tell them whether the kitchen needs to be updated, whether the bathrooms need to be updated. Sometimes they will detract from the negativity of not having a bathroom or a kitchen updated by placing strategic items that will have the buyer focus on that. So easily, if you change the appliance, they will focus on an updated appliance as opposed to the granite countertop or lack thereof.
I see. And Lorraine, a question about that. Now, many sellers are looking for the biggest possible profit. And they might think, if I pay a professional stager, there goes part of that profit. And also, if I update my kitchen and my baths, there goes a big chunk of that profit. What do you think?
Stephen, it is important to update. However, sometimes people don't have the finances. Sometimes people don't have the time. But kitchens and baths sell a home. So if your primary bathroom is updated, your kitchen is updated, reports have shown that you get much more money than if the home was not updated.
Right. Exactly. And again, based on your experience, when you have sold properties, do you always try to make those properties just absolutely as beautiful as they can be? And how do you market the properties that you've owned that you would like to sell?
So when I try and sell, and we've only sold 2 properties, one property we left vacant, but it was clean, it was move on ready, it was a clean slate, so someone could envision their things. I virtually staged it, which meant, because it was a small property, actually it was the first home that we bought, which was the condo, and we virtually staged it so people could imagine what they could do with that property. The second property that we sold, I had it virtually staged, and it sold well. We priced it, we didn't overprice it, and I had an agent represent me. I didn't do it myself because I didn't want to get emotionally involved, and so I let the agent bear the burden of the negotiating.
Well, that's good. That's very smart. And tell us about virtual staging, Lorraine. You've done it twice. What is it, and how does it make the sale great for the seller?
Virtual staging, there are companies that do it. If you're not tech savvy, the companies will guide you through. There are so many options. You could have one where you can pick and choose furniture and you can place it on this screen, and then it's staged so people can envision what and how the house is, how it would look if it was staged. The other way is to have someone do it professionally for you.
Okay. And Lorraine, another question about your personal experience when it comes to selling homes. You told me that one of your properties generated multiple offers. Now tell me, what was it about the winning offer that made you pick that one?
Stephen, what was really important to us was timing, because we were doing a 1031 exchange and using the profit that we could get and buying another property. So that's a story for another time. But the timing was important. The other thing was that the buyer was qualified, well qualified, had a good lender who could guarantee that we would settle in the time that we needed. And the agent on the other end was very responsive. So it was a win-win for everyone.
Oh, that's really, really good advice, because you do want to make sure that the buyer can do the deal. Because even if they offer a sky-high price, first of all, the place might not appraise. And second, who knows if that buyer can really go all the way to the closing table.
Absolutely. That is so important. And sometimes it may be beyond the buyer's control because there may be issues with a homeowners association. There may be so many other factors. And it is important as a seller to have all those things taken care of. And when I talk about homeowners associations, they factor in, the homeowners associations require you to comply with certain things. So an inspection is done prior to listing the home. And if there are things that need to be fixed that are required by the homeowners association, it is better to get that done prior to listing a home than doing it later on.
Can you tell us about the seller's net sheet, what it is, and how you prepare it, and how it helps that seller?
Absolutely, Stephen. What a seller's net sheet is the price of the home that is offered, and then taking away all the costs and what the seller actually keeps. So if you take away the cost of staging, if you take away the cost of remodeling, if you take away some of the costs of, say, paying for a home warranty, those things, it's really the net what the seller can walk away from. They may have a mortgage that they have to take away, so that is also subtracted. So it gives the seller a clear picture as to what to expect. And I do it with 3 different prices. So if you list it slightly lower, you list it at X, and you list it higher, what is it that you're going to get and what you're actually going to keep.
And Lorraine, I've got to imagine that when you prepare that net sheet for most of your seller clients in Northern Virginia, it's going to be pretty good news for them because many houses, if not most houses, have experienced a huge increase in value, meaning much more equity for the seller.
Absolutely, Stephen. Prices have gone up, and our proximity to DC has played a great role. Now, that used to be a positive. With the shutdown and Doge, there are some homes, and some people have been impacted by that. There have been a few refinances, but again, the interest rate that they had before is not as low as what the interest rates are currently. So those are factors that come into play. And yes, sellers do make money, but not as much as they did in the past. So if
I
you
see.
price your home correctly, you will sell it.
And how quickly will you sell it if you price it correctly and if it's in great shape?
It should sell in a normal market, normal in quotes, in 30 days. So from the time you list the house and put it on the market to the time it goes to settlement, it'll be about between 30 and 45 days. I've closed sooner. I've closed in 10 days.
Wow, that's incredibly fast.
You've got to have a good, yes, you've got to have a good lender that will do that.
If you get multiple offers on your house, doesn't a seller then turn to you and say, "Hey, Lorraine, we priced it too low"?
That is not true. I always tell a seller the price is the price, whether you have one offer or multiple offers. At the end of the day, it's value. Buyers see value, and then that is important. If you price your house too high, the house will sit on the market forever, and you will end up getting less than had you priced the house accurately.
And Lorraine, a final question about selling your house in today's market. Is this a good time to sell? Or would I be better off waiting until next year or maybe the year after that?
Stephen, you cannot time the market. When you have to sell, there is a reason you want to sell. And none of us have a crystal ball. We don't know what the market's going to do. We don't know the external factors that come into play. So if you have to sell your home, sell it, get a good realtor who will guide you through the process, guide you to pricing it correctly, guide you as it relates to having it show in the best possible light and getting the best price out of the outcome.
Excellent. And Lorraine, now let's turn to buyers in today's market. Now, they do have interest rates that are better than they were a few weeks ago. And in some cases, more homes are on the market. So if I wanted to buy a house in Northern Virginia, and I didn't want to go through bidding war after bidding war and losing a few that I hope to get, what would be your best strategy for me based on your own experience?
So when I'm working with a buyer, the first thing I do is have them sit down with a mortgage broker. And what that means is the mortgage broker will look at their financials, see how much income, what their debt is, and then guide them. Sometimes you could afford $1 million doesn't mean that you want to pay $1 million. So the mortgage broker will tell them what their comfort level is. And then you get all the documentation and you are ready when the right home comes to make an offer that is a good, solid offer. And what that means is your realtor, your buyer's realtor, will have spoken to the listing agent, found out what is important for the seller, and write and frame an offer that makes the most sense and is as desirable as possible for the seller. If timing is a factor, if price is a factor, if rent back is a factor, there are so many factors that come into play. But at the end of the day, having a realtor who will work for you and get the information so that you can write the best offer, that is what is crucial.
I see. And Lorraine, in today's market, if I really want to get the house, do I have to offer above list price, or is that no longer necessary?
Stephen, it's not always the case having to offer above list price because there are other factors that come into play. Price may not be the only thing. If the sellers need to get rid of the house quickly, then timing may be important. If the house has not been updated, but they need to sell, that may come into play. So it depends on what is important to the seller and having two realtors work well together so that it's a win-win for everyone.
And a question, Lorraine. I've heard that one of the tried and true techniques that many buyers have used is no longer used at all, and that is writing the seller a love letter, telling them how much they love the house and they would love to make it their own home. Why is that gone?
Stephen, writing love letters used to be a thing of the past. Nowadays, you've got to be very careful because of discrimination. And so, writing a good offer, a strong offer, it is so important that the seller and buyer's agents speak with each other because the love letters left it open to discrimination. People discriminated or it could be factored into that, and it is no longer allowed.
Yeah, I've heard that it's been just pushed aside and that no one's writing love letters anymore. But there are other things buyers can do, especially in a competitive market, and you mentioned one, which is finding out exactly what the seller wants as far as when they close, as far as the reason that they're moving, because all those things can help craft an offer. But it wasn't too long ago that one of those things a buyer did was skip the home inspection. Is that also gone in today's market?
Stephen, inspections are important. Inspections give the buyer peace of mind. It also lets them decide whether an inspection is important. What has happened is home inspections, given a competitive market, will be done prior. So they do a pre-inspection, which the seller will allow, usually they do, have them come through and do a walkthrough inspection, a quick inspection to see if the major items and major systems are in working order or how quickly they would have to be replaced. Another thing that can be done is get a home warranty. And then they factor that into their offer. So, yes, sometimes home inspections are waived, but they also do a pre-inspection, not a full inspection, prior to writing an offer.
Very interesting, Lorraine. And another big change, of course, involves the compensation of the real estate agents. Now, that all changed just over a year ago. But we're hearing that even though everything's just up for negotiation now, most sellers and most buyers are still experiencing what used to happen for years, in which the sellers would go ahead and pay the buyer's agent. What are you finding?
Stephen, I'm finding that both the buyer's agents and the seller's agents communicate. And the listing agent, when I list a house, I ask if the seller would be amenable to offering compensation. I pick up the phone and I call the agent as a buyer's agent. Sometimes it is advertised on the company website. It's no longer allowed to be advertised on MLS. And sometimes the concessions are factored in, which means that the buyer's agent may offer use some of the funds that are offered by the seller to pay for some of the things, and they split it. It doesn't have to be equal, but they do split some of their compensation.
Okay. And so there have been some changes, but not universal, not in every single transaction.
That is true. And again, it depends on how you educate your buyer, how you educate your seller, because an agreement is imperative. Sitting down and explaining the process to a buyer is imperative. Talking about compensation is important because in the past, the seller paid everything. And it's like saying what comes first, the chicken or the egg. It's it comes out in the wash, really. And so if you talk about that compensation, and if the seller offers it in this day and age, then the buyer knows what is factored in, and they can plan how they can structure their offer. Sometimes they will pay that separately, and that offer that does not include compensation for their agent. The buyer pays their own compensation.
I see. I see. And Lorraine, you and I have talked real estate many, many times. And one of the best conversations we had involved a buyer's expectation. And it involved your experience when you bought a house decades ago. Because you told me you walked into the place and it wasn't perfect, but you saw potential there. Tell us about that.
Oh, absolutely. Many, many moons ago when I bought my home, I loved the location. I loved the way it was laid out, the house was laid out. It needed a lot of work. And we were not buying a home to flip it. We were buying a home to raise our kids. And I remember my husband telling me, all that can be fixed. You cannot change location. You cannot change the size, technically. And you love the yard. So all these things happened. And over a period of time, we've been in our home for almost 30 years, and you couldn't pay me to leave.
And so what can today's buyers learn from that, Lorraine? That when they walk into a house, don't just turn around and walk right out, but really give it a fair shake?
It is important to have a good realtor because when someone walks into the house, it's often that they say, oh my gosh, this house is the pits. But if you have a good realtor, they can say, look beyond, you could do this. Right now, the cost of this house is X, but if it had been updated, it would have been a whole lot more. You can move in and do renovate slowly and make it the way you want it and make it your home as opposed to just four walls.
I see. And Lorraine, that reminds me of when I was a realtor and I walked into a property with a client and they were looking to buy. And we walked through the door and I said, ew, this house is awful. And the lady turned around and looked at me and said, I love it. And she bought it. So I learned a lesson there, just to be quiet, Stephen.
Absolutely. We have to tell our realtors, we have to tell our buyers, look beyond and let them speak first. I always believe he who speaks first loses. So what you may like may not be what the buyer likes.
I see. And another part of your experience in buying property, Lorraine. Now, today, we're experiencing a drop in mortgage interest rates. Not a huge drop, but a drop.
Right.
And that'll help buyers. But would you share with us your experience with interest rates back when you bought your first home?
Absolutely, Stephen. When we bought our first home in '89, interest rates were 13%. It was a little townhouse that was listed for $95,000. And we bid up to 105. I still remember that, at 13%, because we loved the location and we saw beyond the condition. And interest rates went up to 20%, 18 and then 20. But we knew we were not going to flip that house. We were going to buy it. And we just, after 20 something years, have sold it. We just sold the house. So that, when you buy a house, look at what you're looking for, figure out what is important. And interest rates will drop. I remember thinking the interest rate that they had, we couldn't assume their loan, but the interest rate was something like 2.5%. And I thought, not in my lifetime. But guess what? We did. So what goes down does come up, and vice versa. It's the circle of life, right?
I see. With interest rates notching down and more homes on the market, many people are thinking this is a great time to buy. What do you think?
Absolutely. Buying a home is one of the biggest decisions in your life, or the second biggest decision that you would make. And it is important to be qualified. It is important now in the fall of 2025, where more homes are on the market and interest rates are slightly lower, to purchase because inventory is higher.
You said the second biggest decision you'll make. I imagine the first involved your husband.
Absolutely.
Kind of goes without saying, knowing you, Lorraine. That's wonderful. Wonderful. And so as we wrap it up today, anything else you'd like to share with us about your experience buying and selling real estate over the years and what our listeners can learn from it?
Stephen, by being a realtor has been one of the biggest joys in my life. I mean, it's not the first. The first are my kids. The second is my husband getting married. But being in real estate, helping people buy and sell homes, achieve the American dream has been my biggest joy. It has given me stability, the option to invest in real estate. It has given me options financially. And I always tell people there's a limited amount of land, and be a part of that. Own a piece of land that you can call your own. And so real estate and being a good realtor is one of my biggest joys.
That is wonderful. And Lorraine, I really want to thank you for being on the show today and telling us all about buying and selling in the fall market of 2025 and how your personal experiences can help everyone listening. Thank you, Lorraine.
Thanks for having me, Stephen. It has been such a pleasure.
Me too. Lorraine Aurora, Associate Broker with Berkshire Hathaway PenFed Realty in Tysons Corner, Virginia, and the President of the Virginia Realtors. Lorraine is also the past President of the Northern Virginia Association of Realtors. Next time on Real Estate This Week, the one factor that can make or break your mortgage application: credit. Good credit means lower payments. Bad credit means higher payments, if you get the mortgage at all. We'll show you how to make bad credit better and keep good credit good. And until then, I'm Stephen Gasque, and thank you for listening.
A brand new episode of Real Estate This Week with Stephen Gasque drops every Thursday, everywhere. And you're invited to listen, subscribe, and follow us. Just look for Real Estate This Week with Stephen Gasque. The best real estate strategies out there, just for you.